You are connected to Label Television, your Pan-African channel. The program is 7th Round every Sunday, same time, same channel. I am not alone on set. Two major participants of the English newsroom of Label Television. On my right, you have Joseph Willie. Joseph, good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon, Efa. Thank you very much.
And on my right, none other but Gauthier Perchano. Good afternoon and welcome to 7th Round.
Good afternoon, Eva, and thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, today three major topics around the African continent. First, we will talk about churches. Secondly, about corruption. And in third place, we're going to talk about an international artist, a son from Africa, a Cameroonian named Stanley Eno. And talking about that, we have a little surprise for you. But first, we open as a pastor is supposed to be an ordained leader of a Christian congregation. Many of them nowadays worldwide are serving humanity by providing guidance to people and communities. In communities, their churches and other investments have made these pastors very rich. But the question we will try to answer today is that which we quote, with the view of all these riches, can these growing churches and millionaire pastors be trusted? The story, then we'll be back for the debate.
A pastor is an ordained leader of Christian congregation. Many pastors worldwide are serving humanity by providing guidance to people belonging to the community. Some of them have become very rich through their churches and other investments. The American magazine Forbes in 2017 published the list of the top 5 richest pastors in Africa, and all are from Nigeria. At the 5th position in this ranking, Chris Okoti, who was a successful musician of the 1980s, in fact a pop singer as that. He became a Christian and set up the Household of God Church, one of Nigeria's most flamboyant congregations. His church members include stars and local celebrities. He is a lover of cars and owns several Porsche cars, which include a Mercedes S600, Rolls-Royce, Hummer, and Porsche. He ran for presidential elections under the banner of Fresh Party, the political party he founded. The Foursquare Gospel Church sent Pastor Matthew Ashimolowo to establish a branch in London. That was in 1992, but the pastor founded his own church instead. Matthew Ashimolowo, who occupies the 4th position in this ranking, is the founder of Kingsway International Christian Center, the largest Pentecostal church in the United Kingdom. It has assets worth more than $40 million and earns a profit of more than $10 million. Ashimolowo gets an annual net salary of $200,000. He also makes money from his media company called the Matthew Ashimolowo. Prophet Timotepe Balogun Joshua is Nigeria's most powerful, controversial and philanthropic preacher, and he occupies the 3rd place in this ranking. He heads the Synagogue Church of All Nations, in short SCOAN, a congregation he founded in 1987. The Christian minister, televangelist and faith healer is a big giver. His humanitarian works include education, healthcare and rehabilitation programs. He is the owner of Emmanuel TV, a Christian television network. Number 2, Chris Oyakhilom's church, Christ Embassy, has more than 400,000 members, several of whom are successful entrepreneurs and politicians. Pastor Chris has diversified interests include magazines, newspapers, a TV station, a record label, hotels, satellite TV, and real estate. Bishop Ayedepo is the richest pastor in Nigeria and the world. He is the founder of the Living Faith World Outreach Ministry. Ever since he founded this ministry in 1981, it has grown to become one of Africa's largest congregations. He hosts 3 services every Sunday in the Faith Tabernacle. This prosperous pastor owns private jets and homes in the US and the UK.
You are still connected to Label Television, the channel who is branding Africa's image. The program is 7th Round. Now, my first question will go to Joseph Willie. After watching this report about churches, about these pastors who are considered to be millionaires in US dollars, what is your first impression and feeling?
I think the church has grown very rapidly from what we had in the 70s, 80s. You know, yes. the early churches, like the Catholic, the Anglican, were not in this level of one person becoming almighty. The churches like the Catholic Church, which is mainly owned by the Vatican, sent their fathers, Reverend Fathers, to most of these African countries. Yes. But in the 80s, we have this generation of Pentecostal churches. And these Pentecostal churches come with a lot of miracles, a lot of prayers. So you see people now look down at the Orthodox, what I should call the Orthodox churches, and embrace the Pentecostal churches. And that's why they think it has grown. Because today people need miracle, people need healing, as if...
But can we trust, I'm not cutting you short, Bert, can we trust those healing procedures? Do you think this is to be trusted? Are these miracles really happening?
Yes, we can trust some, and we cannot trust some. Because most of these pastors, I think they should have a way of checking themselves. But what I do understand by pastoring is a call. And that call must come from the Almighty God. So if you do not have this call, that is why you see some of them failing. That is why you see the negative aspect of it crept in. So that is how I look at it. If you have a calling, if you say, in the name of Jesus, be healed, automatically that person will be healed and becomes a miracle.
Oh. Have you
No, I'm not. No, but that's what I'm saying.
Your impression about the impact of this kind of churches on the African continent.
So thank you for giving me the word. It's always a very big pleasure to be invited here and to discuss major topics. So thank you once again. My impression is that a pastor being rich is no problem. You see, a pastor being rich is no problem, because even if we go into the Bible, we will discover that King Solomon, the son of David, was even the richest man on earth. You see, so he was a very rich man, but he was a man of God above all. So I don't have a problem with pastors who are really, 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 really rich. But the problem
is... We talk about 100 or 150 million US dollars worth of a pastor, someone who is trying to preach the word of God and the living of God to communities. You think it's normal?
I think there's nothing wrong in it, but what is wrong is the process. How did he do to get this money? Was he an investor before he became a pastor? Was he a businessman before getting into pastoring, or he just became rich after being a pastor? So this is the question I have to ask.
It's the opposite, because you guys heard the report where it was said that these people had become rich, but first they were pastors before after investing into businesses. That's the case of the number 2 of the ranking of Forbes 2017, but it means that on a part it is true becoming a pastor that he enriched himself.
Yeah, one way we can say it's by becoming a pastor that he becomes rich. And my main concern is the way, so the process that he just took to become rich. Is he becoming rich by extorting people, or is he becoming rich into the right way? So this is the thing. And after, when we investigate on the person, and if we ever discover that the person is actually, getting rich in a very wrong manner, and then this is something to be condemned. But as for me, there's nothing wrong with the pastor being rich.
Yes, but the problem here is not a pastor being rich. We are talking about pastors who are millionaires in US dollars, and the impact of these churches. Joseph Willie, what do you think is the impact of seeing these churches evolving every year in Africa and taking more and more value to the eyes of the people living in communities?
Yes, honestly, the richest aspect of it, the richness in the churches has given everyone a concern. Don't forget, the church is being registered as a non-profit organization.
Sure.
Yes.
Because of the intake, what is coming into the church, the amount of money that goes into the church makes people to look at how this money is being managed. Look at, for example, you can see what I know. What I know in some of these churches, what I've done my investigation is that if I need a certain thing and I go to a pastor and he prays for me, assuming I need a contract, and the contract is about 100 million US dollars, and I went to a pastor and he prayed for me and I want the contract, automatically I have to go and pay 10% of the money as a tithe
Where is
to
it
the
written?
church. Yes, it is
It's
written in the
written in the
Bible.
Bible.
Yes, even as as a worker, as a civil servant or somebody that is working at the end of the month, you are a Christian.
But
you are duty.
don't you think that sometimes these pastors use the word of God and manipulate it in their own way?
Yes, definitely. Definitely,
Because there
they
are some
do.
writings, some scriptures that people use in their favor and say that they are doing it because of the will of God. So
Yes, they do, and that is the negative aspect of the influence that we are talking about. If they are manipulating the masses, the congregation, that is
Yes.
where it is wrong. But if, as a Christian, I won a contract or I am a worker at the end of the month, the Bible says I should pay my tithe. I pay it. I do not even have. The one thing that is not permitted is that if you pay the tithe, you cannot ask how is the money being
Managed.
used.
Yes.
That is it. So you see a lot of people that goes to the church, they pay tithe at the end of the, assuming you have 100 or like the congregation that we have watched,
Yes.
they pay their tithe at the end of the month. Then there is a
and
lot
the
of money
members
that
of
is
this, the
going into
members
the
of this
church.
congregation, as you're talking about the money and the revenues the church can bring, the members of this congregation are said to be rich businessmen, rich entrepreneurs, artists,
Really?
celebrities.
Really?
So
Yeah, they pay. Someone even makes some offering.
yes.
They offer. They can offer a pastor a church, a car. They can offer a pastor
A mansion?
In fact, they can because they can afford it, and because the prayer that the pastor has offered to them has worked. So the way to show appreciation, to thank God that, oh, pastor, this one is, so that is some why. So we see some of them being rich, as we have seen.
Talking about that, we have been used to seeing the rankings of the world's top richest men, of the Africa's richest men, rankings of the biggest celebs in Africa, but more and more we see on the internet rankings of the African richest pastors, the world's richest pastors. What does this imply to you?
So,
Isn't it shocking?
of course, it is shocking. You know, because a pastor, first of all, is not supposed to be somebody who has to show off, who has to be a celebrity. A pastor can never be a celebrity. A pastor is a man of God. You know, when you're becoming a celebrity, it means that you are accepted by human beings. But what a pastor has to do is to be accepted by God. He doesn't have to be, a celebrity. And
That's why when they talk about Rolls-Royce cars, owning private jets, it's a little bit shocking.
Yeah, it's a little bit shocking, you know. But in the other hand, we also have to acknowledge the fact that for a pastor, for example, having a jet, a jet is something that can make his job easier. For example, imagine that the pastor has to travel to the United States for a special mission there.
Yes.
If he has his own jet, he will just take it instead of going to the airport, queuing again and paying a ticket.
Excuse me, Gote Perchano, do you think that a pastor wants to travel? Can't he take a flight ticket like any other person to show his humility?
Not to show his humility, but imagine that he's needed there very quick. What does he do? Does he have to go and queue at the airport, wait for the...
So for you, it is... It is just a really, please.
Yes,
tell
I
me
think
something
owning a
about-
private jet is going to a limit. You talk about humility. Pastors supposed to lead by example.
Yes.
And that it shows us that, okay, we are humble. If you own a jet, how many congregations are you taking them? Where are you taking them to?
Of
If you
course.
owned, yes,
And what
if
are
you owned.
you're attaching yourself to human values?
yes,
That
yeah.
what God...
I don't share that point of view.
Material, that is-
I don't share that point of view. When in the other life, when you pass away, when you go into heaven, in heaven you will not enjoy what is on earth. Over there, what you will have to do is only praise and praise.
So they have to own the jet and
No,
enjoy
I'm
what is-
not saying that the pastor should attach himself to the
To material
to
things?
materials, but there are certain things which a human being cannot live without doing. For example,
So you, Gote Perchano, you don't have a private jet. Aren't you proud of yourself?
no, actually,
Or aren't you proud of what you're doing?
I am
because
proud.
you don't have a private jet and you can go to the US.
I'm proud of what I'm doing, but I wish I could have a jet also. That's it. If I could have a jet, that would be good, But for the time, I'm actually proud, and I'm not really condemning pastors having jets. This is part of the blessedness of God. If God has blessed you, remember King Solomon.
My God.
Yes, remember King Solomon. King Solomon,
Yes.
he asked God wisdom. He said, God, I just want wisdom. But because God saw that this man, he doesn't want, riches, he doesn't want health. So on top of the wisdom that I'm going to give him, I'm also going to give him some kind of, a reward or a bonus. I'm going to give him wealth. And he was very, 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 very rich. So there's nothing wrong with the pastor being actually rich or having a jet.
Let me come back to Joseph. Do you know that some pastors, like one in Cameroon who is called Dieudonné Kandem, has recently been implicated in an affair of taking money from his worshippers and telling them that he will multiply it, and the guy has run away to Canada, where he is offering mass service every Sunday at $50 to each of the people coming.
That is where the problem comes from. Yes. Because if you look at pastors, and you look at the source of the wealth, it gives a concern, because most of them they have placed materialism before the word of God. I have been able to follow this other prophet TB Joshua. I know the man has done so much to the people. There is no African country, I can say it because I've done my investigation, there is no citizen from African country that have not enjoyed scholarship from Prophet TB Joshua. It will send you to the highest university that you want to go. As I'm speaking, there is some still a Nigerian or South African in Oxford University. You paid a lot of money, and he has been able to do that. He has a charity for the elderly. You can take an elderly person that has been abandoned, build a house for the person, accommodate the person. He goes to the street, pick people from the street and feed them. That is how the money is supposed to be used first before you begin to use it and buy. And you always see him very simple. He doesn't wear a suit. Not that he doesn't have it. It is a very humble pastor. I have followed him very well. But to talk about other pastors which I've seen, but I'm seeing a little flash of materialism in their life. I'm not judging them anyway. But what should be done is let the masses, let the congregation enjoy the church.
That's it.
Let the congregation, because if I have a problem, I am a Christian, I run to my pastor. Oh, sorry, pastor, this month I've not been able to pay my house rent. How much is your house rent? Now give me. That is the church. That is what the church is supposed to be. Be of a help to the society, the big influence. I think that is what... in fact, I have seen a footage of that Emmanuel TV. A Nigerian police officer was shot. They had an encounter with an armed robber in one of the banks that he was. The federal government, the police, it's like he was not there. They went to that synagogue church, they were cried out. He has to call doctors in the church. Please look at what is wrong with this man. He said this man will be given the best medical treatment. The guy was flown to India. He had the best surgery and comes back to give testimony. You know what he said? When the guy was saying testimony, he said, oh, the federal government of Nigeria abandoned him. The police that he worked for abandoned him. He said, no, this is the federal government of Nigeria doing it for you. So it means if the church is helping, he did not claim it that I am the one. Oh, don't you know I am.
But how many of these pastors help people the way TB Joshua does, or how many of them are truthful? How many of them are to be trusted? Because in the same line, we get some people who say yes, they have found peace, they have found everything in churches, but you also have others who will complain of them having lost money through their pastors. Some men who complain of their wives sleeping with the pastors because he says he will bless
Scandal.
them.
Even as you speak, I'm not cutting you. There was a problem sometimes ago with Chris Okotie. It's very serious scandal in the church because of this woman's issue.
Do you have something to add, Gauthier Pachano, before we move to the next topic?
Yeah, of course. I have something to add, over what he was saying. Actually, this is even the main mission of the church. Charity. Charity is the main mission of the church. So the pastor should be somebody who will support the members of the congregation. If you have a problem, you have to be able to go to the pastor and say, Pastor, I have this problem, and he has to be helping you. But I would take the case of the pastors, of this country, Gabon, because this is the country that I know the most. This is the country that, although I've been traveling to some countries, South Africa, Ghana, but Gabon is the case that I know the most. In Gabon, what I can actually observe with the pastors is, they only take tithes, they take offerings, but they do not invest in terms of charity. If I take, for example, the case of Pastor Mbadinga. Pastor Mbadinga is very rich. he even owns a TV station on his name for himself. The people who are working there, it's true that he pays them, but you know what comes after? The money that he pays them, the money is returned to him through tithes, through offerings, and I think this is not the way the church has to be managed. You see, it's not really the way the church has to be managed.
Yes.
So for me, the pastor should be an example. He should be the shepherd. So guiding the sheep
into the word of the God of the Lord, and teaching them how to live according to the will of God instead. Anyways, we will cut this topic because we don't have to bring in personal feelings now. We are going to talk about corruption, as the fight against corruption has become one of the greatest fights for African nations. Theme of the African Union Summit in its 30th edition this 2018 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. In Nigeria, it may take a knock as the Federal High Court in Abuja over the weekend backed Senate's rejection of Ibrahim Magu as the head of the anti-corruption agency EFFC. The commentary is by Joseph Willie.
A few days after EU nominated President Muhammadu Buhari as the champion of fighting corruption, the Federal High Court in Abuja has ruled in favor of Nigerian Senate's rejection of Mr. Ibrahim Magu as acting chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. The court ruled in favor of the Senate, stating that the Nigerian lawmakers has the right to choose only suitable and credible person for appointment to office. The court's pronouncement was made known to journalists on Wednesday by Senate spokesman Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi after plenary. The judgment was made in the suit challenging the Senate authority to disallow an appointee the office of chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission under the Act. In 2016, the Senate had rejected Magu's appointment after a security report from the Department of State Services (DSS) indicated he failed an integrity test. However, the Vice President Yemi Osibanjo, who was then acting president, said that Senate lacks the powers to confirm such action. Following the court's ruling, the Senate has charged President Buhari to abide by court's judgment, which the Senate believes validates its power of confirmation and rejection of the president's appointment. With the removal of Ibrahim Magu as the head of EFCC's jettison the corruption fight in Nigeria, it remains to be seen in days to come.
We are back on set because you're watching Label Television. You're privileged televiewers, Gautier Channel. After watching this report, which was signed, Joseph Willie, what can you tell us about you? In the past years, we have been listening to speeches made on the fight against corruption. For the case, for example, of Gabon or one of the African countries, do you think this fight is evolving in a positive direction?
Yeah, of course, this fight is really evolving in a very positive direction. Even though it's to my taste, it's really going very slow. But it's really moving into the right direction. If I take, for example, the case of Gabon, you see, before taking the case of this Operation Mamba that everybody's talking about around the country, I would take, for example, Mr. President in 2009 when he came in office. Yeah, he promised that he will fight against corruption of police. Police also always taking money from taxi drivers and all this stuff. And he even promised that he will put what he called their
the name tag.
No, this number they used to have,
an emergency number.
Not an emergency number, but what they call it in French. So I remember about the French name for it, matricule.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he will put it into the uniform so that anytime one policeman has been reported to have taken money illegally from a taxi driver or illegally from a passenger, this passenger or taxi driver will have the possibility to call the police and report the number of the policeman. But this, we no more talk about it. That's why I say, of course, there have been some efforts who have been made on this major topic, but they are really going slow. But of course, this is something we can already, congratulate, because they have decided now to fight against corruption. Corruption being a major issue which has brought our continent down.
talking about the fight against corruption. Joseph Willie, you you are of Nigerian origin, and when President Muhammadu Buhari came into office, he said one of the fight, even though terrorism will be also a very important panel of its mandate, equally the fight against corruption, he has always said he's going to fight against corruption in Nigeria. Do you think with yes, we can say that it has been evolving, this fight is evolving in the right direction?
Yes, thank you. Since he came to office in 2011, Buhari has waged war on corruption. This is not the first time we had it in Nigeria. When he was even the head of state in the military in the 80s, he always worked on corruption. But the argument was that when he started it, he was going after those in the other political party, the PDP political party, who have just handed over office. So people believed that he was fighting opponent in the corruption, because there was a case in the presidency where the federal government, the secretaries to the then secretaries to the state to the federal government, Baba Bashar, was involved in the massive corruption. He said it was more than $400 in cutting grasses in the IDP camp. So there was an uproar. The president did not remove Babasha from office, not until Nigerians began to talk before he was being removed. Even the head of security was also involved in corrupt practices. So since he came to office, he has tried in as much as he can to fight corruption.
We saw the arrestation, at least President Muhammadu Buhari has been arresting since his entry at the presidency in 2011. He has been arresting some past ministers, even actual ministers, big general managers of
that is where the problem, the fight of corruption is having a serious what should I say, a kind of corruption, as they said, fight back. Because these people that he goes after, or they are going after, are top people that were in the government at that time. So you talk about the former ministers that we have, like Desiane Madueke, who was the former minister of petroleum. As I'm speaking to you, she's still being investigated in London by the Scotland Yard police. You see, the problem with the Nigerian fighting corruption is that they will say, okay, Joseph Willie is involved in corruption. I will first be in the newspaper, and then thereafter they will be looking for evidence to see. Most of the corruption, most of the people that has been caught in corruption fight, when they go to court, some of them get free because the EFCC has not been doing their job very well. That is, they do not go into detailed investigation before somebody is taken to court. And when somebody is taken to court, the court, because it has to do with evidence. If you say, I have taken money, you have to provide enough evidence to make sure I am put in jail. Some have, I don't know how many people have been so far convicted. And as they go to court will send them up. At a point, in Nigeria, was saying the court is now trying to cooperate with the corrupt practices. The court is not an ordinary place. It is a place, if you have a case, you must have your evidence to prove that person A has stolen a lot of money. What people are talking about, that in Goodluck's Belle's Jonathan's regime, he was not fighting corruption. Jonathan will come and tell you that.
Because himself, during his reign, or let's say his term in office, Goodluck Jonathan was ranked many times by the American magazine Forbes as the richest Africa's head of state. So is it not normal that he shouldn't be much involved in the fight against corruption?
What people said he was not fighting corruption is that maybe he was not arresting people as the Buhari was doing massive arrests by the EFCC. And that did not go down well for Nigerians. Human right to detain somebody for over 2 months, 6 months, doing investigation of corruption. It doesn't sound well.
You're talking just about months, but let me remind on this set, and for those of our televiewers who don't know, In Cameroon, do you know that the head of state of Cameroon, His Excellency Mr. Paul Biya, arrests his own ministers, general managers, and they spend like maybe 21 years in prisons without judgment. And after when they condemn you to 40, 50 years because of embezzlement. It is a great crime in Cameroon.
That is why I'm saying Desiani Madueke, the former petroleum minister in Nigeria, is still being investigated by the Scotland Yard. And they don't do it the way we are doing here in Africa. They will investigate you until they get enough evidence that when you are in the court, you must be in jail.
But Gauthier Pachano, do you think the problem is the investigation, or like in Cameroon it is called Operation Épervier, in Chad it is called Operation Mamba, no, in Gabon it is Operation Mamba, and in Chad it is Operation Cobra. Do you think that all these operations are going to bear fruit in the sense that it will help the counterparts now enjoy more, the citizens of each country enjoy more from the riches of their country than for those riches to be in single people's pockets?
Yeah, of course. I think this is something that we have to congratulate, because those different operations will have two main impacts or two main objectives. The first main objective is to prevent people from stealing, because that today the regime is not the same as before. Before you could be there, you could steal money because the president was your friend, and then you couldn't fear nothing, but today the context is totally different and has changed. So you won't steal because that even though you're a minister, you're a general manager, you're a councillor, everything, whatever you can be, you're going to be arrested. And this is going to help because, just imagine all this money that was being stolen at the time. This money could help, serving the country, creating infrastructure such as schools, because we know that in Africa,
and even helping improve the sanitary domain, hospitals, and all the
sanitary domain really has a problem. If I take, for example, the case of Gabon, you see sanitary people, people working into the health service, they are always complaining. Sometimes they are always going in strikes, and you go to hospital, you will not find people there because.
But we should congratulate the head of state of Gabon, His Excellency Ali Bongo Ondimba, for his fight against corruption, because even last week we heard that the general manager of the national enterprise, who is in charge of all the construction of social apartments and everything, was arrested. And before that, he has arrested many people involved in this scandal, because when he arrived at the head of the presidency in 2009, he said he was going to build 5,000 social houses per year, making around 30,000 at the end of his 7-year term. But in the end, 35. All the people who were in charge of this project embezzled the money, and finally he has arrested almost all of them. And it is the case of many.
Yes, I think that this is the problem that we have in Africa. Everywhere from Gabon to Nigeria to South Africa to Sudan, we have our politicians or leaders stealing our money.
But now that you're talking about politics, I would just send back the lead to you by asking you that, don't you think that all these operations made by these governments, these fights that they're talking about every time, it is more to track their political enemies than to track the real people who are stealing? That
is where the problem is, because in Nigeria, when President Buhari started, he was saying he's going after the political opponent. They have their reason, because in his government, there are those people whom he was not going after. Let me give you a case of the Minister of Transport in Nigeria, Amiechi. He was a former governor of Rivers State. Rivers State is one of the richest states in Nigeria. One of the richest. When they put down their budget, it is more than 5 countries in Africa. He was the governor of that state. The people of that state wrote a petition to this Economic and Financial Commission, because before you are arrested, there must have been a letter citing where you have stolen the money. So he refused to arrest the man, even as we speak. So that is where they say, okay, you are now going after the opponent.
It is the case also in Senegal, if you permit me. It's the case in Senegal. Yes. Many opponents are also saying that the operation which is taking place there to fight against corruption is an operation which is tracking mostly political opponents.
So that is where the problem is, because if you are going after your political opponent, the onlookers will say you are not serious about the fight on corruption. And when you are arrested, Forget you have people, you have followers. They'll begin to say, why is my brother arrested? Why is my uncle arrested? And they forget that this, your uncle or whoever you think
Family
it
member
is,
it is,
has done a lot of damage financially to our community. And that is, it is not supposed to be like that.
And damaging the community, you're damaging those who are living there. But before we close this topic, I think it is important to tell our leaders to be righteous and objective through these operations. But we continue here in Label Television to encourage them in the upholding and the continuation of these operations. Now, we are going to talk about culture in 7th round. The international Cameroonian Stanley Enoch. He is known as Bayangi Boy, I meant to say, author of the song entitled Empire, a song well known and appreciated by urban music lovers around the world, is back with a new album which will be released this month. Their very first Cameroonian hip-hop artist to win the MTV African Music Awards, intends to be more present on the national stage after his many performances around the world these past few years. We have him live on Label TV, an opportunity to ask him all the questions we want to listen first to a story signed by Gauthier Perchano. Then we will be back for the continuation.
Stanley Ebai Eno, also known as Bayangi Boy, born in Bafoussam, Cameroon, is a Cameroonian rapper, radio and TV presenter, and also producer. He is best known for his single entitled Empire. He is currently the most popular Cameroonian artist in the young population. In 2014, he was the first Cameroonian to be nominated and to win an MTV Africa Music Awards in the Best New Act category. His first album entitled Soldier Like My Papa, released in 2015, rocked not only his home country Cameroon, but also the entire African continent and the whole world, hence granting him access to perform everywhere, even in America, where African artists still have difficulties to promote their music. The man has many singles such as Empire, released in 2013, Tumbu Tumbu Bus, 2014, Slippery When Wet remix in 2014, Njama Njama Cow the same year, King Kong in 2015, Work Hard 2015, Yours feat Ice Prince in 2015, Bounce feat AKA and Loco 2016, Adore You feat Mr. Easy in 2017. In less than 5 years, Stanley grabbed many awards and rewards. In 2014, Best New Act at the MTV Africa Music Awards. In the same year, Best Newcomer at the Africa Music Magazine Awards, Afrima in Dallas. 2015, Revelation of the Year at Central Duo. The same year, Best Male in Central Africa at the Afrima Awards 2014. 2015, nominated for the Foresight TV Music Video Awards. 2016, in the category Best African Act Video. 2016, nominated for the Cora Awards 2016 in the Best Hip Hop Artist category. In the same year, nominated for the Africa Music Magazine Awards, Afrima 2016 in the category Best Male Central Africa and Video of the Year. 2016, Best Artist in African Hip Hop at the Afrima Awards 2016. But the story doesn't just stop there. This year, and particularly this very month, the artist comes back with new soundtracks. In fact, when people thought he was out of inspiration, the Bayangi Boy returns with a new crazy album mixing hip-hop and afro, in which Amazing is part of the major tracks. The artist intends to be more present on the national stage because these past few years, he has been too busy performing around the world and traveling to promote his art. In an interview with one of our reporters, he confided that, "I am thankful to my fans, particularly those in Cameroon, Gabon, Equatorial Guinea, etc. It is because of them that I have been able to professionally achieve what I have achieved these past 5 years." To be more present, Stanley will release a freestyle every week. Also good to know is that the man with many awards on his name will give a mega concert in the east of the country on the occasion of the Cameroonian Youth Day celebration on February 11th. But before then, a visit to his former high school is scheduled on February 8th, and rumors on a possible decoration of the artist have been circulating. Stanley Eno is with no single doubt part of the African generation of artists who have conquered the world and contributed to the rise of the African culture.
We are back on Label Television with this interview with Stanley Eno. But first, I will ask my two colleagues here on set. Joseph Willie, what do you think about Stanley Eno, the Bayangi boy?
I think it is one of the rising stars in African music. There's no doubt about that. Everybody loves his song. He composes, he sings very well. He's good on stage. I think it is a good development for African music. It's a really good development.
And you, Gote Porchano, the story writer about this wonderful, the author of this wonderful report on one of the sons of Africa, Stanley Eno. What
Thank you.
is your opinion?
My opinion, Stanley Eno is one of the rarest Central African stars. Because when we talk of African music, we most of the time talk of South Africa, Nigeria a lot. In Nigeria we have great names such as Davido, such as Wizkid, all those guys. Also from Ghana, in Nigeria we have P Square. But in Central Africa, and particularly in the African-speaking, French-speaking, background, we don't have great artists of this ranking and of this caliber. So what I have to say is that's something great, and it's just a pleasure to have somebody like that, somebody who will leave Africa and go and perform around the world, especially in the United States of America, where African artists still have difficulties to promote their music. In the United States it's very hard for an African to just leave Africa and go and make noise there. But that guy has done it, so congratulations. I'm really proud.
If the technical staff and the person in charge of ensuring the communication with Stanley Eno informs me that we can go on with this discussion. Stanley, good afternoon. Are you getting me? Hello? Hello?
Hey, what's up, people? I hope you guys well. This is your homie Stanley Eno, yeah.
I have a first question for you. What about the upcoming challenge, your national tour in Cameroon? What is it all about?
Yeah, Eva, what I'm just trying to do right now is I'm working on my national tour, and I just want to make sure that I show a lot of love. These people have been loving me so much since the beginning of my career, and yes, I gotta go meet them and just tell them that I love them. I've been traveling around the world, but I gotta make sure that I start with my people. That's Bafoussam in the West Cameroon.
What are your expectations as far as the public you will meet during this tour is concerned, Stanley?
Yeah, so what I'm expecting, what the crowd is expecting from me is, giving a great performance, giving a great show, and, I'm just ready, I'm nervous, because it's my people, but I just have to keep going and doing it, because that's what I do best, yeah.
So how are you preparing yourself to face this public in Bafoussam town where everything started for you and your career?
I even want to use the proceedings of my of this tour, to help the less privileged, I want to go visit my old primary school, my old high school, go to the penitentiary and stuff, because it also happens that the show is going to be on the 11th of February, but the 8th of February is going to be my birthday, so I just want to make sure that I use the star power I got to make sure my people are happy, and yeah.
We have heard a lot about the Stanley Eno Foundation. What are the objectives?
Oh yeah, with my foundation, the Stanley Eno Foundation, I'm just trying to make sure that I empower the kids, because music is what I do, but I just want to make sure that I use my image and brand to be able to bring in sustainable solutions, to the youth out there, because if they're not educated enough, if they're not healthy enough, they can't even dance, they can't even scream and listen to our music, so that's the role of the Stanley Eno Foundation, making sure that the kids are so happy and just very fulfilled, in education and in health. So I want to use everything I got to make sure that we could connect to these international organizations and, make it work for them.
It is a very big pleasure of having you on this set on Label Television. Stanley Eno, remember, you are an international artist and the very first Cameroonian to earn the MTV Music Award. I will let Gauthier Perchano, the author of the report about your story, to ask you a question before we close.
Yes, Stanley, I have one question. It's true that you've had a lot of influence over the youth, but what do you promise to African youths around the world in terms of legacy?
As an African, I must say I'm a rapper, I'm a singer as well, and I just want to make sure that my impact and my image is being used to inspire the kids out there and tell them that they can make it if they try. And yeah, so that's me, Stanley Eno, from day one. I've always been very supportive to the youth and very admirative to the very strong youth we have in Cameroon and Gabon, in Nigeria, to just be that person that really can tell them that you can make it whatever, wherever, no matter where you're from, whatever your background is, and yeah.
We thank you, Stanley Eno, for accepting our invitation, and we hope when you come to Gabon one time, you'll come and visit us at Label TV. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you so much for having me, Gabon. I love you so much, Rosanne. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it was Stanley Eno from Cameroon, international artist known worldwide. Gauthier Perchano, I come back to you. What is your feeling after having such an icon of African music live on set?
It feels like I'm even trembling, because it's the very first time for me to talk to him personally. It's true that I've been chatting, over Twitter and over WhatsApp as well, but talking directly and asking him questions, directly, it feels really good.
Joseph Willie, your feeling, impression?
I think it shows that as I said earlier in our opening introduction, African music has gone a long way.
Yes.
In the 80s, let me still use this, you could not imagine all this hip-hop from Africans going to the America to perform. Rather, we were enjoying their music.
Yeah.
Today, we are enjoying our own urban music, we are enjoying our own hip-hop.
Afro music.
Yes, I think that is the essence. And one thing that interested me most is the foundation. So they had a foundation for the youth. That is very good. That will help the little money that they had, will not be lavishing it, put it in the foundation and see how you can help the poor people out there. I think that is very good.
Talking about money, do you think that the artists in Africa really get an accompaniment from the ministries of culture or even from organization or businessmen on the African continent? Do you think, more specifically for the case of Central Africa, because in Nigeria and Ghana it is more developed, you see that art is even a source of revenue for the countries, but in Central Africa, do you think that music or even art is put at a certain level?
Eva, there's always been this discussion whether we can compare West Africa and Central Africa. Of course, there is no way to compare, those two parts of Africa, because it's like in West Africa, it's like it was not even Africa. Things are done there in a very different way.
You're being a bit severe.
No, I'm not being severe. No, that's the mere reality. That's the truth. And we here to talk true.
Yes.
We don't have to lie to our televiewers. We have to tell them the way things are. And what I think is, here in Central Africa, the Ministry of Culture does not accompany artists. So when you decide to embrace an artistic career, you have to be ready into your mind that you're going alone. And you only have to count, on your surroundings. I mean, your friends, your relatives, your producer, maybe your promoter, but never try to even count on the ministry, because the ministry will never accompany you. It's like the ministry is there just for, okay, we have to create a ministry of art and culture, but it doesn't really help people, in terms of helping them to promote their music, for example, helping them to have contracts to go and perform in France or abroad. Actually, if you see, for example, those artists who are coming from France, from the United States, you will see that the Ministry of Culture is even involved. But here, it's not the case. So it's just a shame. It's a pity.
Yes, I think because they are using it as a tourism to promote what they have there.
Yes. And even as a source of revenue.
Yes, it's a source of revenue for
the
them.
music
Yes, for them.
and
That
arts
is why-
industry in Nigeria is really valued.
It's very big. It's valued at millions of dollars because it creates employment.
Yes.
For the youth. The only thing the government has put in place is a law that a copyright law. I think that has helped them because if I am able to produce my music, nobody can just pick it
Use
up
it.
and use it
Yes,
like that.
yes.
For free.
And that has helped. But I think in this area, I've not really seen that copyright law.
No,
That
there
would have
is.
been-
There is the Organization of African Intellectual Property,
Yes.
in short OAPI.
Yes.
I'm saying it in
Mm,
French.
yes, I know,
It
I know.
exists in Africa. We also have the OHADA, which is an organization for the rights of intellectual property
Right,
of artists.
property.
It is equally, the copyrights are equally protected here, but the question is, how many of these artists have the means to promote
Yes.
their art or have the accompaniment of the different...
Yes, I think because the law is there, but it might not be enforced. In the case of
It's a problem of
yes,
enforcement.
yes, it
Yes.
is not enforced, but the law is there. Because as an artist, let's take for instance that Eno that we have just watched.
Yes.
You don't know what he goes through to make sure he get the album out. And somebody on the street corner just go and get a machine and print, produce this and sell it at 500 francs.
It's
Well,
true.
it took him millions to produce, and you can sell as much as you have in a day. How much have you given to the young man that produced the music? This is the problem that you see some of these artists in Africa, some of them are not doing well.
That is even, it is
That
even
is the
this
problem.
question of copyrights which made that in Central Africa, I don't know the case, but I think in West Africa they have cinemas, but in Central Africa, because of the copyrights problem issue which hasn't yet really been tackled, all the cinemas are closed. You have no cinema in
No
Gabon, in
cinema
Chad,
theater.
in Cameroon, in Guinea, you have no cinema because of copyright problem. Is it the case in Nigeria?
No, it is not, because I was looking at it sometimes 2 years back. In my Facebook, I have to write to them. I said, look, you can not only have a television station that premiere your epic. Why can't we get a cinema hall? I said, let us premiere it here in maybe in Libreville,
Yes.
tomorrow Lambaréné. It brings in more revenue for you, not only for us to watch it on television. What about those that do not have access to television? Take the cinema to the people, and then you try to see how they can open up the cinemas that we have not had it in many years. We have not seen cinema hall functioning. So I think the entertainment industry in Africa is growing. We only believe it can get better.
In some African countries,
some African
because
countries. In
Not
South
in every
African
African
countries.
countries.
Good
Like I
to
was
see.
saying, actually,
Yes.
in West Africa, things are working in a very different way. If you take the case of all the countries that she's been just quoting, all of them, she said Chad. Chad is
Chad.
a French-speaking country. She said
Cameroon.
Cameroon, French-speaking country. Gabon.
It's bilingual, Cameroon.
Yeah.
You have French and English.
Anyway,
Yes.
Cameroon is bilingual.
In fact, I remember in the Jonathan's regime, the artists were asked to set up a kind of group which they were given loan, a bank of industry. You can go in, say, okay, come with your
Wow.
project. Come with your project, how much they give them, how much, so that it can help. Because the government realized that it is also creating jobs. For Nigeria. That is what government can do. Create an enabling environment. Allow the youth to thrive on their own. If that is done,
There is a school which
Yeah.
is being built here in Gabon.
it's
not
full of
even
music.
far
It's
from
not very
music.
far from our
But
studio.
that's cool.
Yes.
That's cool. I think to get in there, you have to spend a lot of money. So nobody.
Yes,
it's
because
not
they are
everybody can
bringing
afford.
in the professionals for that. But maybe, who knows, they are going to give them scholarships to study in the
Oh,
school.
that's what we
because
hope. Because
Let's have the school first, and then we take it from there. Yes,
but
if
not,
you-
not only let us have schools, but let us also have schools that will enable people to get in there, because just imagine that the school fees are very high and people cannot afford.
Then the objective
problem.
of the school will be.
the objective is to form as many and as many talented youth.
As many talents, all right, but to get many talents, many people have
But
to come first.
Channel is being very negative.
No, I'm not being negative.
Maybe
I'm just
he
being
might
realistic.
speak from his
I'm just being
experience.
realistic.
Yes, he speaks from
He
his
plays
experience.
guitar.
Oh, he's a musician.
He plays
yes,
guitar.
Because if you have, assuming I have music, I can get to somebody who is well-to-do, please can you sponsor me? A lot of Nigerians that have come out from the music industry, that is what they did. They can meet one Nigerian that is very good, a politician that has money. When they sing the song, they will mention your name. So
but that is the thing.
Yes,
the thing is that those artists are not only waiting for the governments of their countries to help them.
No,
they are equally waiting for businessmen, because you have people like Nigerian Aliko Dangote who sponsors musicians.
They can sponsor some
even governors who sponsor they sponsor sports athletes, they sponsor musicians, actors, and everything. They sponsor even the premieres of movies. But here in Central Africa, it is not every time that you see.
Not every time. There are some, but for those people, they have to be musicians. If I take, for example, the case of Jean-Boniface Asselet, to whom I say, hi, this is somebody, this is somebody who helps a lot of artists.
Good
and he helps a lot of artists, but he is a musician first. So it's not kind of everybody, just like, if you take the case of Jean-Boniface Asselet, he's a musician and he's also a sportsman. He's having his own club, so he can easily sponsor, whether sportsmen or musicians. So, but they are not, a lot of people who are able to do that. We can count the number of people who
maybe the awareness has not been created on that line. The musician, but maybe some of the musicians have not approached them to say, okay, sir, I have this music, can you help me? When the sales comes out, we can see what happened. It is like, because if you
anyways, the topic is going to be very long, and we have a time. We have to cut this program short. We thank the entire technical staff of Label Television, and I thank you, my two colleagues, for participating into this program.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, rendezvous next week, next Sunday, same time, same channel, for another edition of 7th Round with 3 major topics on the African continent, which we decrypt and analyze. At the technical staff, at the sound, you had the powerful and none other Bill Mange, who helped us to get the straightforward communication with Stanley Eno in Cameroon. At the camera, it was none other but Moussa No. And at the final matrix, you had Pape Diouf, and the overall production was carried by Medium Dice. Stay tuned on Label Television, the channel who is branding Africa's image. Goodbye.